Hi, my beautiful and loyal family. Welcome back to your warm and blessed home, Mr. Peter's family. May the Almighty clothe every woman in divine courage, unshakable dignity, and a peace that never breaks, no matter how heavy the storm becomes. May your wounds turn into wisdom, your pain into purpose, and your whispered prayers into miracles that light your path. You are the warmth in cold nights, the strength behind silent battles, and the heartbeat that keeps families standing tall. May your mornings shine softer, your evenings rest deeper, and may your soul find comfort in every unseen moment. My precious family, don't fall silent tonight. Your presence keeps this home alive. A like is a light of hope. A comment is a bond of unity. This is mission 1,000 likes for every woman who kept giving, kept believing, kept rising. If you carry love in your heart, like this video. If your spirit walks in faith, comment, "I'm with Mr. Peter." Nancy Walsh would remember 3 things about the night Jake Cabay destroyed her. The rain against his penthouse windows, the way his Patek Philippe caught the light when he gestured at her body, and the exact taste of blood when she bit her tongue to keep from screaming. She sat on the edge of his leather sofa, the one that cost more than her first car, wearing his old Michigan State t-shirt because nothing else fit anymore. 8 months pregnant, swollen ankles propped on the ottoman, hands resting on a belly that had been moving all day, their son doing somersaults against her ribs. Jake stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, silhouetted against the Detroit skyline, a glass of Macallan 25 in his hand. He'd been drinking since she arrived an hour ago. She'd noticed, but said nothing, waiting for him to explain why he'd asked her to come over at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. "We need to talk about expectations." His voice was clinical, corporate, the same tone he used in board meetings. Nancy's stomach tightened. Not a contraction. Intuition. "Okay?" He turned to face her. Jake Cabay at 38 was objectively handsome. Sharp jawline, grey eyes, the kind of professionally maintained body that came from having a personal trainer and a private gym. CEO of Cabay Industries, a luxury automotive empire his father had built, and he'd expanded to 400 million in annual revenue. Nancy had met him 3 years ago at an industry conference. He'd been charming, ambitious, intense. She'd been a brand strategist at a mid-tier agency, good at her job, but invisible in rooms full of men like him. He'd noticed her anyway, pursued her, made her feel seen. She'd quit her job 8 months into their relationship when he suggested she focus on us, on building something together. She'd believed him, believed in them. Now he was looking at her the way she'd seen him look at quarterly reports that disappointed him. "You're not beautiful anymore, Nancy." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. "I need you to understand that." The words hit like a fist to the solar plexus. Nancy's breath caught. Her hand instinctively went to her belly, protective. "What?" "Look at yourself." He gestured with his glass, scotch sloshing. "You've gained what, 60 pounds? Your skin's different. Those dark patches, the stretch marks. You're exhausted all the time. You fall asleep during conversations. Your hair's thinning." 43 pounds. She'd gained 43 pounds. Her doctor said it was perfectly healthy. Baby, fluid, placenta, her body doing exactly what it was designed to do. The skin changes were melasma, common in pregnancy, temporary. The exhaustion came from growing a human being while her body diverted every resource to keeping that life alive. But Jake wasn't interested in biology. He was interested in aesthetics. "My board, my investors, they see you at events and they see this." Another dismissive wave. "I built a brand on precision, Nancy. Excellence. Cabay Industries represents the pinnacle of luxury. Our customers pay premium prices for perfection. What do you think it says about me? About my judgment when I show up with someone who looks like they've given up?" Nancy's hands were shaking. She pressed them against her thighs, willing herself to stay calm, to think clearly. But rage was building in her chest, hot and sharp. "I'm pregnant, Jake, with your child. Our child. This is what pregnancy looks like." I know that, which is why I'm handling this responsibly. He crossed to his desk, pulled out his checkbook. The sound of the pen scratching paper filled the silence. I'll provide generous financial support, the best schools, healthcare, everything the child needs. I'm not abandoning my responsibilities. The child, not our son, not the baby, the child. But I can't have you at company events anymore. I can't have potential clients and partners seeing me with... He trailed off, but the implication hung in the air like poison gas. Nancy stood, 8 months pregnant, wearing borrowed clothes, and she stood with her spine straight. Every muscle in her body screamed. The baby kicked hard, like he could feel her distress. His name is Gunnar. Her voice came out steady, controlled. Your son, Gunnar Elijah Walsh. Not the child. Not this. Gunnar. Jake didn't look up from writing the check. Whatever helps you sleep, Nancy. You can stay in the guest room tonight if you're too tired to drive. We'll work out a formal arrangement through lawyers. Something inside her shattered. Not her heart. That would come later, in private. What shattered was the last fragile piece of hope that this man had ever actually loved her. I need you to look at me. He glanced up, impatient. I need you to see my face when I tell you this. Nancy's voice was quiet, but it cut through the room like a blade. You're going to regret every word you just said. Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, when you're empty and alone and you realize what you threw away, you're going to remember this moment, and you're going to wish you could take it back. Jake laughed, actually laughed. Nancy, come on, don't be dramatic. This is a practical decision. You'll be fine. You're smart, capable. You'll find someone more suitable, someone at your level. She didn't trust herself to speak. She walked to the guest bedroom where she'd been keeping clothes for the past few months, pulled out a small suitcase, packed methodically, underwear, a few maternity tops, her toiletries, the book on her nightstand about preparing for labor, 3 years of her life in this penthouse. 3 years of believing in a future that had never actually existed. Jake appeared in the doorway. You're really leaving? Tonight? In your condition? My condition? Nancy zipped the suitcase, faced him. You mean pregnant? Yeah, Jake, I'm leaving pregnant, just like you wanted. I'm trying to be reasonable here. You're being emotional. I'm being clear. You don't want me? Fine. But you don't get to control how I leave. She brushed past him, headed for the door. Nancy, wait. At least take this. He held out the check. She could see the amount. $15,000. First month support, probably. She looked at the check. At his hand. At his face. Confusion and irritation, like she was a problem he couldn't quite solve. Keep it, she said. You're going to need it when I'm done with you. What's that supposed to mean? But Nancy was already out the door, suitcase in hand, walking toward the elevator. She held herself together through the lobby, through the parking garage. Her car, a 6-year-old Honda Civic she'd kept even after Jake suggested she upgrade, was parked in the visitor section. She threw the suitcase in the trunk, got behind the wheel, put her hands at 10 and 2 and stared at the concrete wall in front of her. Then she felt it. A pop, low in her belly, followed by a gush of warm fluid soaking through her leggings. No, 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 no. Her water had broken. Nancy fumbled for her phone. 6% battery. Of course, she dialed 911 with shaking fingers. 911, what's your emergency? My water just broke. I'm 32 weeks pregnant and my water broke and I'm alone. Okay, Mom, stay calm. Where are you located? Nancy gave the address. The parking garage of the building she'd just been kicked out of. The dispatcher's voice was professional, soothing, but Nancy barely heard it over the roaring in her ears. Ambulance is 20 minutes out due to traffic. Can you get to a hospital? 20 minutes. Detroit Medical Center was 12 minutes away. She knew because she'd driven the route 3 times, practicing. I can drive myself. Ma'am, I don't recommend... I can do it. I'm doing it. Nancy hung up, started the car. A contraction hit. Not painful yet, just a tightening, her body preparing. She breathed through it, put the car in drive. The rain had started. Of course it had. Nancy drove through downtown Detroit, through rain and contractions and the complete dissolution of everything she'd thought her life would be. Her phone died somewhere around Woodward Avenue. She didn't care. She knew the way. Detroit Medical Center's ER entrance glowed like salvation. Nancy parked crooked across two spaces, grabbed her purse, left the suitcase, waddled through the automatic doors. I need another contraction, stronger this time. She gripped the reception desk. Water broke. 32 weeks. Need. A nurse was there immediately. Wheelchair. Questions. Nancy answered on autopilot. No, no partner. No, no family. Yes. Prenatal care. Dr. Martinez. Yes. Preeclampsia monitoring. No complications until tonight. Until tonight, when the father of her child told her she wasn't beautiful anymore and sent her out into the rain to give birth alone. They wheeled her to labor and delivery, hooked her up to monitors. The baby's heartbeat filled the room, strong, steady, perfect. Nancy started crying. She couldn't help it. This tiny person she'd been carrying for 8 months, this life she'd felt kick and roll and hiccup inside her, was about to be born, and his father didn't even care enough to be here. "Hey, honey. Hey now." A nurse appeared at her bedside. Older black woman with kind eyes and elaborate braids. Her name tag said Bethany. "I know it hurts, baby, but you're doing so good. You and your little one are both doing great." "I'm alone." Nancy's voice broke. "I'm completely alone." Bethany took her hand. "You got me now. I'm here for the next 12 hours, and I'm not leaving you. You hear me? You're not alone." Nancy gripped her hand like a lifeline. A contraction built and peaked and released. The monitors beeped. Nurses moved efficiently around the room. Dr. Martinez arrived, examined her. "You're at 4 centimeters. Baby's doing fine, but we're watching closely given the early rupture. Let's see if we can slow this down, or if baby's ready to meet us." But Gunnar, it turned out, was ready. Over the next 6 hours, Nancy's labor progressed. Bethany stayed exactly where she promised, holding Nancy's hand, coaching her breathing, wiping her face with cool cloths. "You got people you want us to call?" Bethany asked during a quiet moment. "No. Parents died in a car accident when I was 19. No siblings." Nancy laughed bitterly. "The father's in a penthouse 2 miles from here and doesn't give a damn." Bethany's eyes flashed with something dangerous. "Then he's a fool. And his loss is that baby's gain, because that boy's going to have a mama who fought for him from day one." At 3:47 a.m., with rain still drumming against the windows, Nancy pushed and pushed and pushed. Dr. Martinez's calm voice guiding her, Bethany's hand in hers, every muscle in her body screaming. And then, a cry. Sharp, indignant, furious. "It's a boy!" Dr. Martinez lifted him up, and Nancy saw her son for the first time. He was perfect. Impossibly tiny, but absolutely perfect. Dark skin, a cap of black hair, grey eyes that would probably change, but right now looked exactly like his father's. Fists clenched, face scrunched, screaming his arrival into the world. They placed him on Nancy's chest, warm and slippery and alive. She wrapped her arms around him and sobbed. "Hi, baby. Hi, Gunnar. I'm your mama. I've got you. I've got you." He quieted at her voice, turned his head toward her, instinctive, seeking. Nancy guided him to her breast and he latched immediately, like they'd done this before, like they'd always known each other. Bethany was crying too. "Look at him. Just look at that boy. He's something special, Nancy. You both are. 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 19 inches long, 10 fingers, 10 toes, a lusty cry and a fierce grip and a complete inability to understand that he'd just been born into the most complicated situation imaginable. While Nancy nursed him, Bethany cleaned her up, brought her water, adjusted the bed. "You think of a middle name yet?" "Elijah, Gunnar Elijah Walsh." Nancy couldn't stop staring at him. "Gunnar means warrior. Elijah means the Lord is my God. He's going to need both." That's a powerful name for a powerful boy with a powerful mama. At 6 a.m., someone from administration came by with paperwork, birth certificate, insurance, emergency contacts. The woman glanced at the form. Father's name? Nancy paused. She could leave it blank, could write unknown, could legally erase Jake from this moment entirely, but she didn't. She wrote Jake Cabay in careful letters, because whatever happened between them, Gunnar deserved to know where he came from. Does the father want to be contacted about the birth? Nancy thought about Jake in his penthouse, probably asleep in his expensive sheets, having successfully excised the inconvenient pregnant woman from his perfect life. No. Later that morning, a delivery arrived. Huge basket of fruit from a high-end service. The card said, "Congratulations on your new arrival, JC," like she was a business associate, like their son was a product launch. Nancy stared at that card for a full minute. Then she called a nurse. "Can you take this to the nurse's station? Share it with everyone. I don't want it." "You sure, honey?" "I'm sure." That afternoon, Bethany came by before her shift ended, sat in the chair next to Nancy's bed. Gunnar was asleep in the bassinet, swaddled tight, his little face peaceful. "You got a plan, sweetheart? Place to go? People to help?" "I have an apartment in Midtown, 600 square feet. I set up a corner with a crib before everything imploded. And I can work from my laptop. I was a brand strategist before I met Jake. I'll figure it out." Bethany pulled out a post-it note, wrote her personal number on it. 3 a.m. questions, 4 a.m. panic. Whenever, you call me. Don't matter what it is. You hear? Nancy took the post-it with trembling hands. "Why are you being so kind to me?" "Because somebody was kind to me when I had my first baby alone, and because that boy deserves to grow up knowing the world has good people in it." Bethany stood, squeezed Nancy's shoulder. "You're going to be just fine. Better than fine. You're going to be amazing." After she left, Nancy picked up Gunnar, held him against her chest, breathing in that newborn smell, milk and vernix and pure potential. "It's just you and me, baby boy," she whispered, "but we're going to be okay. Better than okay. I'm going to build you a life so good, so strong, that you'll never question whether you were wanted. Because you are. You are so wanted." Gunnar yawned, stretched his tiny fists, settled against her heartbeat like he'd always belonged there. Nancy looked out the hospital window at the Detroit skyline. Somewhere in that city, Jake was going about his day, working, meeting, making decisions that affected hundreds of people. He had no idea what he'd just lost, but he would. Nancy would make damn sure of that. She pulled out her dying phone, opened her email. Her old boss from the branding agency had reached out 3 months ago. "If you ever want freelance work, we'd love to have you back in any capacity." Nancy responded with one hand, Gunnar asleep in the other arm. "I'm available immediately. Send me everything you've got." Then she noticed another email. From a brand director at a major athletic company. Subject line, RFP, brand redesign. Nancy opened it. The company was looking to fire their current agency, Cabay Industries, after their latest campaign had flopped spectacularly. They were seeking fresh perspectives, new voices, authentic stories. Nancy looked at her son, at his perfect face, his father's eyes, his complete trust that she would take care of him. "You know what, Gunnar?" She smiled for the first time in what felt like years. "I think Mama just got a second chance, and I'm not going to waste it." She hit reply on the email, CC'd her old boss, and started typing a pitch that would change everything. Chapter 2. Born into War. Gunnar Elijah Walsh entered the world at 3:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, 7 pounds of fury and fists, screaming like he knew exactly what kind of fight his mother had just chosen. Nancy brought him home 3 days later to an apartment that suddenly felt impossibly small. The studio in Midtown that had seemed cozy when it was just her now felt like a closet. She'd set up a nursery corner before Jake's dismissal, a second-hand crib from Facebook Marketplace, a changing table she'd assembled herself, a rocking chair her neighbor was getting rid of. It looked pathetic in the harsh afternoon light. Nancy set the infant carrier on the floor. Gunnar was asleep, his face peaceful, tiny chest rising and falling. She looked around at her life, 600 square feet, cracked plaster, a radiator that clanked all night, a kitchen that was really just a corner with appliances, a bathroom where the shower handle came off if you pulled too hard. This was what she had to offer her son. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Venmo sent $15,000 from Jake Cabay, first month support. Nancy stared at the notification. $15,000. More than she'd made in 3 months at her old job. Enough to move to a better place, buy new furniture, create some breathing room. She opened Venmo, took a screenshot of the pending payment, then declined it. Instead, she opened her banking app, pulled up her checks, and wrote across the memo line of a physical check. Gunnar Walsh deserves a father, not a checkbook. She'd mail it to Jake's office, let him open it in front of his assistant. Gunnar woke up screaming. Nancy jumped, her heart pounding. She'd been home for 20 minutes and already she was failing. The next 6 hours were a blur of crying, feeding attempts, diaper changes, more crying. Gunnar wouldn't latch properly. Nancy's breasts were engorged, painful, leaking through her shirt. The lactation consultant at the hospital had made it look so easy. By midnight, Nancy was crying as hard as Gunnar. She sat on the floor of her apartment, back against the wall, this tiny human wailing in her arms, and wondered what the hell she'd been thinking. She couldn't do this. She was 29 years old with no family, no partner, no job, and a 4-day-old baby who clearly hated her. She remembered Bethany's post-it note, 2:47 a.m. That qualified as an emergency, right? Nancy dialed with shaking fingers. Bethany answered on the second ring, alert. "Nancy, that you, baby?" "I can't." Nancy's voice broke. "He won't stop crying and I can't get him to eat and I don't know what I'm doing and—" "Hold on, sweetheart, hold on." "Take a breath for me." Nancy breathed. Sort of. "Good. Now tell me what's happening." Nancy explained everything. Bethany listened, asked questions, talked Nancy through different positions, different techniques. 20 minutes later, Gunnar finally latched. The relief was instant for both of them. "There you go." Bethany's voice was warm through the phone. "You did it, Mama. You figured it out. I called you at 3 in the morning. And I told you to. You ain't bothering me, Nancy. You're doing the hardest job in the world completely alone. You're allowed to need help." After they hung up, Nancy sat in the rocking chair, Gunnar nursing peacefully now, and let herself cry quietly. Not from sadness, from exhaustion and gratitude, and the overwhelming realization that this was her life now. Everything else, career, ambition, pride, came second to keeping this little person alive. At 4 a.m., she opened her laptop one-handed. Her old boss, Michelle, had sent over 3 potential projects. Small stuff. Social media strategy for a local restaurant, brand refresh for a boutique law firm, website copy for a startup. Nancy could do all of this during nap times. She started with the restaurant, created a proposal document while Gunnar slept in the crook of her arm, outlined a complete strategy, authentic food photography, behind-the-scenes stories, user-generated content campaigns. She quoted them $3,000 for 3 months of work. Hit send at 5:15 a.m. Michelle responded by 9 a.m. "They love it. You're hired. When can you start?" Nancy looked at Gunnar, asleep in his bassinet, at her apartment that needed cleaning, at her own body that hadn't showered in 3 days. She wrote back, "Today." The next 3 weeks were survival. Nancy learned to work in 15-minute increments, write copy while Gunnar nursed, edit photos during tummy time, take client calls with him strapped to her chest in the carrier, muting when he fussed. She slept in 90-minute chunks, lived on protein bars and coffee, showered every 3 days if she was lucky. But she delivered, every project, on time, better than expected. More work came. Michelle sent her bigger clients. The boutique law firm turned into a full rebrand. The startup wanted a complete marketing strategy. Nancy said yes to everything, terrified that if she said no, the work would dry up. Jake's checks kept coming. Monthly, $15,000. Nancy returned everyone with a different message written across the front in Sharpie. Gunnar took his first bath today. You weren't there. Gunnar smiled at me this morning. A real smile, not gas. You'll never see it. Gunnar has your eyes. He doesn't have your father. She knew it was petty. Knew she should probably just take the money, put it in a college fund, be practical. But every returned check was a promise to herself. I don't need you. I will never need you. By the time Gunnar was 3 months old, Nancy had landed her biggest client yet, an athletic shoe company doing a complete brand overhaul. The brand director, a sharp woman named Keisha, had seen Nancy's work for the restaurant. I love how you tell authentic stories, Keisha said over their video call. Nancy had Gunnar in the background, visible in his bouncer. Everything's so polished these days, so fake. I want real. I can do real, Nancy said. Gunnar chose that moment to spit up spectacularly. Nancy didn't flinch, just wiped him with a burp cloth. Sorry, mom life. Don't apologize. You know what? That's exactly what I'm looking for. Real bodies, real lives, real stories. Can you pitch me something along those lines? Nancy could. She spent Gunnar's next nap creating a presentation that would change her life. Real bodies, real victory. The concept was simple but revolutionary for athletic brands in 2020. Feature actual athletes of all sizes, all abilities, all backgrounds. Not models who looked like athletes. Real people doing real things. A marathon runner with thick thighs, a basketball player with acne scars, a swimmer who'd had a mastectomy, a weekend warrior dad with a beer belly who still showed up for his kids' soccer practices. She pitched it on a Thursday. Gunnar was 4 months old, teething, miserable. Nancy had gotten maybe 3 hours of sleep, but she delivered that pitch like her life depended on it, because it did. Keisha called her back the next day. You're hired, $85,000 for the full campaign, start immediately. Nancy sat in her apartment, her tiny, cramped, perfect apartment, and cried. $85,000, more than she'd made in 2 years at her old job, enough to move, to hire help, to maybe possibly breathe. She picked up Gunnar, spun him around. He laughed, that gorgeous baby laugh that sounded like pure joy. We did it, baby boy. Mama just got us a future. That week, Nancy registered Walsh Collective LLC, opened a business bank account, hired a part-time sitter, a college student named Maria, who needed flexible hours and loved babies. Maria was studying social work at Wayne State, had 3 younger siblings, and treated Gunnar like he was made of gold. You're going to be great at this, Nancy told her after the first day. So are you, Maria said, nodding at the laptop, the scattered notes, the evidence of Nancy building something from nothing. You're kind of a badass, you know that? Nancy didn't feel like a badass. She felt like she was barely holding it together, but she smiled anyway. Fake it till you make it, right? The Real Bodies, Real Victory campaign launched 6 months later. By then, Gunnar was 10 months old, crawling, getting into everything. Nancy had moved them into a 1-bedroom apartment in a better building. Gunnar had his own room now, painted deep blue with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. The campaign was everywhere. Billboards, social media, magazines, morning shows. NPR did a segment on it. Forbes wrote it up. Sales for the athletic company increased 34% in the first 6 weeks. Nancy's phone didn't stop ringing. 4 more brands wanted to work with her. A marketing agency in Chicago tried to recruit her. A venture capital firm asked if she'd consider taking on investment. Walsh Collective had arrived. Through industry gossip, Nancy heard that Cabay Industries was struggling. They'd lost 2 major accounts. Jake's VP of marketing had quit, joined a competitor. There were rumors of internal chaos, poor leadership, clients questioning whether Jake still had the vision that had made the company successful. Nancy told herself she didn't care. She cared. Of course she cared. Every loss Jake took felt like a tiny victory. Gunnar's first birthday party was small, just Maria, Bethany, a few neighbors. Nancy made a cake from a box mix that came out lopsided but tasted fine. Gunnar smashed his face into it, got frosting everywhere, laughed that belly laugh that made Nancy's entire world make sense. That night, after Gunnar was asleep, Nancy sat on her tiny balcony and allowed herself to reflect. 1 year ago, she'd been in labor, alone, terrified. Now she had a thriving business, a beautiful son, and a life she'd built entirely on her own terms. Her phone buzzed. Another Venmo from Jake. Same amount, same emptiness. Nancy declined it. Then she did something new. She posted a photo on her professional Instagram, her and Gunnar at his birthday party, both covered in frosting, both laughing. The caption, "Building an empire, one nap at a time, Walsh Collective, brand strategy for companies that give a damn." Within an hour, Jake's assistant's account tried to follow her. Nancy blocked it. She didn't need Jake to see her success. She just needed to keep building it. But somewhere in the back of her mind, a tiny voice whispered, "He's watching now. And one day, he's going to realize what he lost." Good. Chapter 3. Building Rome in the Dark. Nancy Walsh learned to run a business the way she learned to be a mother, exhausted, desperate, and without the luxury of failure. By the time Gunnar was 18 months old, Nancy had transformed Walsh Collective from a one-woman operation into a boutique agency with 6 full-time employees and 12 major clients. They'd moved again, this time to a 2-bedroom apartment in a building with actual security and a small playground out back where Gunnar could toddle around while Nancy worked from the bench, laptop balanced on her knees. The physical transformation was almost as dramatic as the professional one. Nancy had lost the pregnancy weight through sheer necessity, running between daycare drop-offs, client meetings, grocery stores, playground visits. No time for the gym, but somehow the constant motion had carved her body into something lean and strong. She'd kept her hair short, discovered it was easier to manage with an active toddler, started developing a signature style, bold colors, clean lines, pieces from Detroit designers who understood her aesthetic. Unapologetically feminine and powerful. She'd dated a few times. Marcus, a cardiothoracic surgeon at Henry Ford, who was brilliant and kind, but they had zero chemistry. David, a philosophy professor at U of M, who was fascinating in conversation, but a terrible kisser. Ahmed, who owned a coffee shop and made her laugh, but wanted more kids immediately, and Nancy wasn't ready for that conversation. Nothing stuck. Her heart was locked up tight, and honestly, she was fine with that. She had Gunnar, she had Walsh Collective, she had a life that was hers and hers alone. Gunnar, at 18 months, was pure joy and chaos. He ran everywhere, never walked, always ran. Talked in sentences that were mostly comprehensible. Mama, truck, big truck. His favorite things were construction vehicles, Daniel Tiger, and a stuffed triceratops named Chompy. He was smart as hell, curious about everything, and had Jake's grey eyes and Nancy's warm brown skin and a smile that could light up entire rooms. One Saturday morning, while Nancy was making breakfast and Gunnar was helping by banging pots together, he looked up at her with those grey eyes and asked the question she'd been dreading. "Mama, where's my daddy?" Nancy's hands stilled on the eggs she was scrambling. She'd prepared for this, had literally rehearsed answers in the mirror. But hearing it from his tiny voice made her throat tight. She scooped him up, sat him on the counter so they were eye level. "Your daddy lives far away from us right now, baby. He's not ready to be the kind of daddy you deserve." "Why?" "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense. Your daddy made a choice to not be part of our life right now. But that's his loss, Gunnar, because you are amazing." "Does he know about Chompy?" Nancy laughed despite the ache in her chest. "I don't think he does." Gunnar considered this seriously. "Then he's missing out. Chompy's the best." "You're right, baby. He's missing out on a lot." That night, after Gunnar was asleep, Nancy pulled out the box where she kept important documents. Inside was every check Jake had sent, 17 of them now, each one returned with a different message. Also inside, the hospital bracelet from Gunnar's birth, a few ultrasound photos, and a single photo of her and Jake from better days. She looked at Jake's face in that photo, smiling, arm around her shoulders, both of them at some industry event. He looked happy. She'd thought she was happy. She'd been so wrong. Nancy ripped the photo in half, threw it away, kept everything else. 2 weeks later, Walsh Collective landed the opportunity that would change everything, a complete rebrand for Madison & Cole, a national department store chain that had just filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The company was bleeding money, losing relevance, desperate for a miracle. The pitch meeting was at their headquarters in downtown Detroit, a beautiful Art Deco building that had seen better days. Nancy showed up with her team, Jordan, her lead designer, Simone, social media strategist, and Trevor, accounts manager. They'd worked on the pitch for 3 weeks straight, refining every detail. The Madison & Cole executives looked skeptical. 8 people around a mahogany table, all older white men except for one black woman in her 50s, who had CFO on her nameplate. Nancy didn't let the skepticism touch her. She launched into the presentation. American families, American dreams, that's your new positioning. She clicked to the first slide, a photo of a real family. You're not selling clothes, you're selling identity, belonging, the dream that every family, regardless of race, structure, income level, can find something that makes them feel seen at Madison & Cole. We've tried inclusive marketing before, one of the executives said. It didn't move numbers. Because you were performative, not authentic, Nancy said bluntly. The CFO's eyebrows rose. You hired a diverse model for one campaign, patted yourself on the back, and called it a day. I'm talking about comprehensive transformation. Every touch point, every piece of content, every in-store experience centered on real people living real lives. She clicked through the mock-ups. Real families, single mums with kids, elderly couples, blended families, same-sex parents, multi-generational households, all different sizes, all different backgrounds, wearing Madison & Cole clothes in their actual lives, at school pickups, backyard barbecues, Sunday church, weekend errands. I want to feature myself and my son in one of these spreads, Nancy said. The executives shifted, not prominently, but as part of the tapestry, because I am your customer. Single mother, small business owner, woman who needs to look professional on a budget, but also needs clothes that survive toddler handprints. The CFO leaned forward. You're willing to put yourself in the campaign? If it serves the strategy, absolutely. This isn't about me. It's about showing your customers that you see them, all of them. The room was quiet. Then the CFO smiled. When can you start? The contract was enormous. $400,000 for the full rebrand and launch campaign. Nancy negotiated hard for creative control, final approval, and bonuses tied to sales performance. They shook hands on a deal that would make or break Walsh Collective. The work was brutal, 3 months of 18-hour days. Nancy hired a full-time nanny so she could focus, felt guilty every single day about the time away from Gunnar. But he was thriving, learning new words constantly, making friends at daycare, becoming this full little person. The photo shoot for the campaign was intense. Professional photographers, makeup artists, stylists, real families they'd cast through an open call that got over 3,000 submissions. Nancy and Gunnar's shoot was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon. She dressed him in a little button-down shirt and tiny jeans, let him pick out his shoes, light-up sneakers that he was obsessed with. The photographer was a woman named Jasmine who'd worked for Vogue and National Geographic. Just play with him, Jasmine directed. Forget we're here. Nancy did. She sat on the set, a living room styled to look like a real home, and read Gunnar a book. He climbed all over her, pointed at the pictures, laughed when she did the funny voices. At one point he grabbed her face with both his tiny hands and said, "Mama, I love you so much." The photographer captured it, that exact moment. Nancy in burnt orange linen, Gunnar on her hip, both of them mid-laugh, his hands on her face. Pure, unfiltered joy. When Jasmine showed her the shot, Nancy's eyes filled. That's it. That's the one. The American Families, American Dreams campaign launched on a Tuesday in March. Billboards across 15 cities. Full-page spreads in major magazines. a social media campaign that immediately went viral. The Madison & Cole website crashed from traffic. Nancy's phone exploded. Press requests, interview offers, potential clients. The business media picked up the story. How one woman's vision saved a dying retail giant. Within 6 weeks, Madison & Cole's stock jumped 12%. Store traffic increased 23%. Sales were up 34% in the American Family's product lines. The bonuses Nancy had negotiated kicked in. Walsh Collective netted an additional $150,000. Nancy moved them again, this time to a 3-bedroom apartment in a genuinely nice building with a doorman and a small gym. Gunnar got a proper bedroom with custom built-in shelves for all his books and toys. She hired a cleaning service, started contributing to a 401k, bought health insurance that didn't make her want to cry. She also started seeing the photo everywhere. Her and Gunnar, that moment of pure love, on billboards and in magazines and across social media. People she'd never met recognized her at the grocery store, told her the campaign had made them cry, thanked her for making them feel seen. It was surreal and overwhelming and incredible. And then, on a Tuesday in late April, Nancy was driving to a client meeting when she passed a billboard on I-75, 40 feet high. Her face, Gunnar's face, both of them laughing. She pulled over just to look at it, to process the impossible journey from that hospital room where she'd given birth alone to this moment, where her face represented a national campaign. Her phone rang. Michelle, her former boss and now informal mentor. Nancy, have you seen the news about Cabay Industries? No. Why? Their CFO just resigned, taking half their design team with him. There are rumors Jake is having a complete meltdown. One of my contacts said he showed up drunk to a board meeting last week. Nancy should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt nothing. Jake's failures were his own. She hadn't done this to hurt him. She'd done it to save herself and her son. That's unfortunate, Nancy said neutrally. Nancy, he's losing everything. And from what I hear, you're taking a lot of the clients he used to dominate. The industry is talking about how you've absolutely destroyed his market position. Good. Nancy surprised herself with the vehemence. He destroyed me when I needed him most. If the market thinks I'm better, it's because I am. I work harder, I care more, and I actually give a damn about the people I'm trying to reach. Michelle was quiet for a moment. You've changed. I had to. I had a son to raise and no backup plan. After they hung up, Nancy looked at that billboard one more time. Gunnar would be coming home from daycare in an hour. She needed to prep dinner, give him a bath, read 3 books minimum before bed because that was their routine. This was her life now, not defined by what Jake had done to her, but by what she'd built in spite of it. Her phone buzzed. A Venmo notification, $15,000 from Jake Cabay. Nancy declined it. Then she did something she hadn't done before. She took a screenshot of the declined payment and posted it to her Instagram story with a simple caption, "Some things money can't fix." It was petty, it was public, it was also deeply satisfying. Within an hour, the story had been viewed 12,000 times, 300 DMs of support, and one message from an account she didn't recognize. He saw it. He's not okay. Nancy deleted the message. She didn't need to know if Jake was okay. She needed to pick up her son, make dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets, and read The Very Hungry Caterpillar for the 800th time. Everything else was just noise. Chapter 4. The Receipt Collector. By the time Gunnar Walsh turned 2, his mother had learned that revenge wasn't a dish served cold. It was a campaign served strategically, repeatedly, and with impeccable documentation. The terrible twos hit like a hurricane. Gunnar had opinions about everything. What he wore, only shirts with trucks. What he ate, dinosaur nuggets or nothing. Who could touch his toys, only him and Mama. He threw tantrums in grocery stores, refused naps. Potty training was going terribly, and Nancy loved every exhausting second of it because he was hers, completely, utterly hers. Walsh Collective had grown to 8 employees, and revenue had hit $2.1 million annually. Nancy had moved them one final time to a 2-bedroom condo she'd actually purchased. Her own place. No landlord, no rent hikes, just hers. The second bedroom was Gunnar's. Walls painted deep blue with glow-in-the-dark stars she'd spent an entire Saturday positioning perfectly. Nancy's style had fully evolved. She wore custom pieces from Detroit designers almost exclusively. Lara Michelle, Reckless Garment Co., Detroit Denim Company. Bold colors, impeccable tailoring, pieces that said, "I built this," without her having to speak. Her natural hair was in locks now, styled in ways that were both professional and unapologetically black. She'd become recognizable in Detroit business circles. She still dated occasionally, but nothing stuck. Her focus was Gunnar and Walsh Collective, and honestly, she liked her life exactly as it was. The checks from Jake kept coming. Nancy had started a spreadsheet tracking every one: date received, amount, what message she wrote before returning it. 24 checks now, $360,000 he'd tried to send. $360,000 she'd sent back, with increasingly pointed messages. Gunnar counted to 20 today. You weren't there to hear it. Gunnar asked if his daddy knows about dinosaurs. I said I didn't think so. He said you're missing out. Gunnar has nightmares sometimes. He calls for me and I'm there within seconds. Who does he call for? She knew it was borderline obsessive, definitely petty, but every return check was a middle finger to the man who told her she wasn't beautiful enough to love. Through the industry grapevine, Nancy tracked Jake's descent with clinical precision. Cabay Industries had lost 6 major clients, 4 of them to Walsh Collective. His head designer Paolo had emailed Nancy directly. "I've admired your work for years. Any chance you're hiring?" She'd hired him, gave him a 30% raise over what Jake had been paying him. Jake's latest girlfriend, some Instagram influencer named Simone, had dumped him very publicly, posted a breakup announcement that subtly dragged his declining professional trajectory and personal issues. His company's revenue had dropped 28% year over year. Nancy told herself she didn't care. She cared. She documented everything. In June, Walsh Collective was invited to pitch for an athletic brand's complete repositioning. The current agency, Cabay Industries. Nancy smiled when she got that email. This one was going to be fun. The pitch happened at the brand's headquarters in suburban Detroit. Nancy showed up with Jordan and her newest hire, Claudia, a strategist who'd worked at Ogilvy and wanted to come home to Detroit. They were competing against 3 other agencies, including Cabay Industries. Jake wasn't at the pitch. He sent his interim creative director, a nervous guy named Brett, who clearly knew he was outmatched. Nancy didn't hold back. She presented a campaign called Everybody Moves, focused on real athletes of all abilities. Adaptive athletes, weekend warriors, kids just learning to love movement. The research was impeccable, the creative was stunning, and the ROI projections were conservative but impressive. "I like it," the brand's CMO said, "but I have to ask, this seems like a massive departure from what you're doing now, Brett." Brett fumbled through an explanation about evolving their approach and new directions. It was painful to watch. Nancy didn't gloat. She just answered questions, demonstrated her team's capabilities, and left. They won the contract. $325,000. Brett's boss, Jake, sent Nancy an email 3 days later, the first direct contact in almost 2.5 years. "Nancy, congratulations on landing the Morrison Athletic account. You earned it. I'd like to talk sometime if you're willing, not about business, about Gunnar." Jake. Nancy stared at that email for a full 5 minutes. Then she deleted it. A week later, she was at an industry mixer, one of those awful networking events where everyone pretended to enjoy warm wine and stale cheese. Nancy went because it was good for business, stayed for exactly 1 hour, spent most of it talking to potential clients. She was getting ready to leave when she heard him. "Nancy, hi." She turned. Jake looked terrible. He'd lost weight, too much of it in a way that looked unhealthy. Dark circles under his eyes. His suit was expensive but rumpled. He was holding a scotch and it clearly wasn't his first. "Jake, you look incredible. I saw the Madison and Cole campaign. It's really brilliant work." "Thank you." Awkward silence. Around them, people were definitely watching. The industry knew their history, even if the details were murky. Can we talk? Maybe somewhere more private? We're talking now. I mean really talk. About our son. Our son. The possessive made Nancy's jaw tighten. His name is Gunnar. I know. I wanted... Do you know his name, or did you have to check the birth certificate? Nancy kept her voice low but sharp. Do you know his favorite color, his favorite food, what he wants to be when he grows up? Nancy, that's not fair. You made it clear you didn't want... I made it clear. Her laugh was bitter. You told me I wasn't beautiful anymore when I was 8 months pregnant with your child. You dismissed me like I was a failed product line. I returned every check you sent because money doesn't make you a father, Jake. Showing up does. And you have never, not once, shown up. I know I fucked up. His voice was getting louder. People were definitely staring now. But I'm trying to make it right. I want to meet him. I want to be part of his life. Why? Why now? Because He ran a hand through his hair. Because I've lost everything else and I realized, stop. Nancy stepped closer, close enough that only he could hear her. You want to meet him now because you're losing? Because you've got nothing else and suddenly a child seems like a good idea? He's not a consolation prize, Jake. He's a person. A brilliant, kind, perfect person who asks about you sometimes. Something flickered in Jake's eyes. Hope, maybe. Nancy crushed it. And I have to tell him his daddy isn't ready to love him yet. That's what I tell my 2-year-old son when he asks where his father is. So no, Jake. You don't get to meet him. You don't get to waltz in when it's convenient for you and play daddy. You made your choice when you threw us away. Live with it. She walked away, made it to her car before her hands started shaking. That night, Gunnar had a nightmare. He woke up screaming at 2 a.m., crying for her. Nancy was there in seconds, scooping him up, holding him against her chest. Shh, baby. Mama's here. You're safe. Scary monster, Mama. No monsters here, baby. Just you and me. She rocked him until he fell back asleep, then held him for another 30 minutes just because she could, because she was here, because she'd always be here. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, an email from someone she didn't know, subject line, "Thought you should see this." Attached was a video. Nancy pressed play with the volume low. It was from tonight's mixer. Someone had recorded Jake drunk, talking to a group of people. His voice was slurred but audible. She got lucky, that's all. One campaign and everyone thinks she's God's gift to branding. Real bodies, real bullshit. It's feel-good marketing that'll be dead in a year. One of the women in the group asked, "Isn't she the mother of your child?" Jake laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. "She trapped me with that kid, you know. Classic move. Get pregnant, lock down the rich guy. I was smart enough not to fall for it." The video ended. Nancy sat in Gunnar's room, her son asleep in her arms, and watched it 3 more times. Then she forwarded it to 5 industry contacts with no comment. By morning, #JakeCabay was trending on Twitter. By noon, Walsh Collective's website had crashed from traffic. Companies wanting to work with the woman this absolute waste of a man had disparaged. By 3 p.m., Nancy had 4 new client inquiries worth a combined $1.2 million. By 5 p.m., Cabay Industries board had called an emergency meeting. Nancy's phone rang. A Detroit Free Press reporter wanting comment. "No comment," Nancy said. Then, because she couldn't help herself, "Actually, I do have a comment. I'm too busy raising a good man to worry about the opinions of bad ones." The reporter laughed. "Can I quote you?" "Please do." That quote was the headline. It was on T-shirts within a week. Jake's board voted him out 11-2. He was offered a consulting position, which everyone knew meant paid to disappear. Nancy told herself she'd feel victorious. Instead, she just felt tired. That weekend, she took Gunnar to the Detroit Zoo. They spent 4 hours looking at animals, eating overpriced French fries, riding the little train around the park. Gunnar wore his favorite truck shirt and light-up shoes and talked non-stop about the penguins. "Mama, why do penguins waddle?" "Because their legs are short and their feet are far apart. It helps them walk on ice." "That's smart. Penguins are smart." "They are, baby." "Am I smart?" Nancy stopped walking, knelt down to his level. "You are the smartest, kindest, most wonderful boy in the entire world." "Because you taught me?" "Because you were born that way. I just get to watch you be amazing." He hugged her then, his little arms tight around her neck. Nancy held him and thought about everything she'd been through to get to this moment. The humiliation, the fear, the exhausting years of proving herself. Worth it, all of it worth it for this. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text. "I saw what you did, what I did, the video. I deserve everything that's happening. I'm sorry, Nancy, for all of it." She didn't respond, just deleted the message and took another photo of Gunnar in front of the penguin exhibit, his face pressed against the glass in wonder. That photo went on Instagram that night with a simple caption, "My whole world." It got 15,000 likes, including one from an account she'd blocked months ago. Jake was watching. Jake was losing. Jake was sorry. Good. But Nancy Walsh wasn't done yet. Chapter 5. The Unraveling. Jake Cabay had spent 38 years believing money could solve anything, right up until the moment his empire started collapsing and the woman holding the dynamite wouldn't take his calls. The video haunted him. Watching it sober, hearing himself call Gunnar "that kid," dismiss Nancy's success as luck, he wanted to vomit. He'd become exactly the kind of man he'd always claimed to despise. The board meeting was humiliating. 11-2. "You're a liability, Jake. Consulting position, $120,000 annually. No decision-making, no client contact. That's it. Revenue down 28%. 6 major clients lost. Employee turnover at 45%. His leadership had nearly destroyed everything." "I accept," he said quietly. The consulting position was a joke. Small office, limited access, nothing to do. He showed up 2 weeks, then stopped. Started drinking at 10 a.m. His penthouse felt like a mausoleum. Friends stopped calling. Women disappeared. He was radioactive. 3 weeks later, Jake woke at 2 p.m. in his own vomit. 17 missed calls. His housekeeper quit via text. He looked in the mirror. Unshaven, bloodshot, 30 pounds lighter. Barely recognized himself. His father called. "Your mother thinks you're dead." "Are you dead, Jacob?" "No." "Then what the hell are you doing?" "I fucked up everything. I watched the video. You humiliated that woman, the mother of my grandson, while drunk in public." Dominic's voice was hard. "You have a son you've never met. You threw away his mother because pregnancy changed her body. Now you're drinking yourself to death, feeling sorry for yourself." "I know. Fix this, Jacob. The company, your life, that boy. Or don't come to my funeral." The line went dead. Jake sat on the bathroom floor for 2 hours, then called his doctor. "I need help. I'm an alcoholic. I need rehab." 3 days later, Pathways Recovery Center in rural Michigan. Real rehab. Shared rooms, group therapy, manual labor, no phones. His roommate Dennis, former auto worker, "You're that CEO asshole from the video." "Yeah." "Good. You need to be here." Rehab was hell. Withdrawal, shaking, sweating, hallucinating, circles with people who'd lost more. Therapist Dr. Okafor who didn't tolerate bullshit. "Why are you here?" "I'm an alcoholic." "That's a symptom. What's the actual problem?" "I threw away the best thing that happened to me because I was vain and shallow." "Now we're getting somewhere." Dr. Okafor made him write letters. The one to Gunnar took 17 attempts. Final draft. "Gunnar, I wasn't there when you were born. You deserved better. Your mum gave you better. I'm working on becoming worthy of knowing you. I don't know if I'll get there, but I'm trying. I'm sorry. Your father." He cried writing it, never sent it, but getting the words out mattered. 28 days. scrubbed toilets, attended meetings, listened to stories, slowly rebuilt himself. Day 26, someone asked, "What are you going back to?" "Nothing. I'm going back to nothing." "Good," Dennis said. "Clean slate." Jake graduated on a cold November day. His sponsor, Terry, picked him up. "Don't go back to that penthouse. It's full of ghosts. Start small, start honest." Jake took the advice. Sold the penthouse, found a studio in Hamtramck for $800 a month. Sold furniture, art, wine collection, put the money in a trust for Gunnar, $850,000. He couldn't work automotive anymore. Found a posting at Southwest Detroit Youth Center, teaching design to teenagers, 20 hours weekly minimum wage. The director, Valerie, interviewed him. "You relapse, you're out. You bring drama, you're out. You treat these kids like redemption projects, you're out. Clear?" Crystal. The youth center was nothing like his former life. One kid, Marcus, 16, with brilliant talent and no resources, reminded Jake of himself. Jake stayed late helping build portfolios. Didn't tell anyone, just did it because it mattered. AA meetings in church basements, 3 weekly. Just another guy sharing failures, 6 months sober. Jake wrote Nancy. "Nancy, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I told people you trapped me, let friends call you a gold digger, said you weren't beautiful carrying my child, sent checks instead of showing up. I was a coward in expensive suits. I'm sober now. 6 months, meetings, therapy, youth center job making $22,000 yearly. My apartment is 400 square feet. I'm happier than I've been in a decade. I've set up a trust for Gunnar, $850,000. You control it completely. I'm not ready to be his father, but I'm working on becoming someone who could be. You were right about everything. Gunnar is lucky to have you. Jake." He mailed it with documents. Didn't expect response. At AA that night, I wrote to my son's mother, apologized, set up college fund, asked for nothing. It felt good, like doing something right. Terry nodded. That's growth, man. Jake went home to instant ramen and a movie on his laptop. Went to bed feeling something close to peace. He'd lost everything, but somewhere in the wreckage, he'd found who he wanted to be. Small, honest, useful. For the first time in his life, real, felt like enough. Chapter 6. The Gala Where Wolves Wear Diamonds. Nancy Walsh didn't believe in divine timing, but walking into the Automotive Innovation Gala as the winner of Jake Cabey's former award felt like the universe balancing its books. She almost hadn't come. The gala was expensive, time-consuming, and honestly, she had better things to do, like put Gunnar to bed and finish a client proposal. But Maria had been insistent. "Girl, you won. Brand Visionary of the Year. Jake won that 3 years running and you took it from him. You have to go. You have to walk in there like you own the damn building." So Nancy did. The dress was custom, emerald silk by Lara Michelle, fitted perfectly to Nancy's body that had carried and birthed and nursed a child. The color made her brown skin glow. Her locks were styled elaborately, pinned up with gold accessories. Diamond stud earrings, the first expensive jewelry she'd bought herself, a celebration when Walsh Collective hit $5 million in revenue. She brought her team, Jordan, Claudia, Simone, Trevor, and 2 new hires. 7 people who believed in her vision, who'd worked their asses off, who deserved to celebrate. They arrived as a unit. Nancy could feel eyes tracking her across the room. She'd become a known quantity in Detroit, the woman who'd built an empire while raising a child alone, who'd disrupted the industry with authentic storytelling, who'd taken down the former golden boy of automotive branding. The gala was at the Detroit Institute of Arts, all marble and grand staircases, and important people in expensive clothes. Nancy navigated it easily now. This was her world too. She spotted Jake before he saw her. Corner table, no date, nursing what looked like a whiskey. He looked awful. Not just thin, unhealthy thin. His suit hung wrong. Dark circles made his grey eyes look sunken. Nancy felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just a mild curiosity about how someone could fall so far so fast. The award ceremony happened before dinner. Nancy sat with her team at a prime table, laughing, celebrating. When they announced her award, the room stood. Actually stood. 300 of Detroit's business elite on their feet applauding her. Nancy walked to the stage, accepted the crystal trophy, looked out at the room. She'd prepared a speech, something safe and professional about teamwork and innovation. She threw it away. 3 years ago, I was told I wasn't beautiful anymore. Her voice carried across the silent room. That my value had diminished, that I'd become inconvenient. She could feel the shock rippling through the audience. This wasn't typical acceptance speech territory. I won't name names. That man knows who he is, and frankly, he's not relevant to this story anymore. What's relevant is this. I believed him. For about 6 hours, I believed that pregnancy had made me less, that my body changing to create life somehow reduced my worth. Nancy paused. Let that sink in. Then I had my son, and he taught me that beautiful isn't what you look like when everything's perfect. Beautiful is what you build when someone tells you you're broken. Beautiful is the empire you create during nap times and between midnight feedings and in the 15-minute increments when your toddler finally stops asking why. Beautiful is loving yourself enough to walk away from anyone who can't see your worth. The room was completely silent, so this award, I accept it on behalf of every woman who's been discarded, underestimated, or told she's too much or not enough. You were always exactly right. They were just too small to see it. The room erupted. Standing ovation. 3 full minutes of applause. Nancy saw several women wiping their eyes. She also saw Jake in the back, looking like he might throw up. Good. The after-party was in the museum's atrium. Nancy circulated, talking to potential clients, congratulating other winners, genuinely enjoying herself. Her phone buzzed. Gunner's nanny FaceTiming for bedtime. Nancy stepped into a quieter gallery, answered with a smile. Hey, baby, did you brush your teeth? Gunner's face filled the screen, toothpaste foam around his mouth. Look, Mama, I'm a rabid dog. Nancy laughed. You're the cutest rabid dog I've ever seen. Did Miss Sarah read you a story? 2 stories, and I picked out my clothes for tomorrow. The truck shirt. Always the truck shirt. It's the best shirt, Mama. You're right, baby, it is. I love you so much. Sweet dreams. Love you more. Nancy hung up, her heart full. This was what mattered. Not awards or recognition or revenge. Her son, safe and happy and loved. Nancy. She turned. Jake stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain. Jake, can we talk? We're talking. I mean, somewhere more private. Please. Nancy considered. She could walk away, should walk away. But something about the way he stood, smaller somehow, less sure, made her curious. 5 minutes, not private, right here. Jake nodded, stepped closer but kept distance between them. You looked incredible up there. The speech was powerful. Everything you've built is just... it's extraordinary. Thank you. Awkward silence. Jake seemed to be gathering courage. I got sober 9 months ago. I'm working at a youth center teaching design. I wrote you a letter explaining everything, sent trust fund documents for Gunner. I got it. Did you read it? Yes. And... Nancy met his eyes. And nothing, Jake. You did what you should have done 3 years ago. You won a medal for finally becoming a decent human being. No, I wanted you to know I'm trying. I'm really trying to be better. For yourself or for access to my son? The question landed like a slap. Jake flinched. For myself, because I hated who I'd become. Gunner deserves better than who I was. He deserves better than who you are now, too. I know. That's why I'm not asking to meet him. I'm just trying to tell you I'm working on it. Nancy studied him, looking for the manipulation, the angle. She'd gotten good at spotting bullshit over the past 3 years. But Jake just looked tired and honest and small. You hurt me, she said quietly. You didn't just leave. You destroyed me when I was at my most vulnerable. You told me I wasn't enough, that our son was an inconvenience. You let your friends call me names. You sent money like I was a problem to be solved. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I can't imagine, but I know it was unforgivable. You're right, it was. Nancy's voice was steady but sharp. So understand this. I don't care that you're sober. I don't care that you're working some low-wage job to prove a point. I don't care that you set up a trust fund. None of that undoes the damage. None of that earns you the right to be in Gunner's life. I understand. Do you? Because showing up here, approaching me at my moment, trying to make this about your redemption, that's still selfish, Jake. You're still making it about you. Jake's jaw worked. You're right. I'm sorry. I'll go. He started to walk away. Nancy surprised herself. Jake, he turned. The trust fund. That was the right thing to do. Thank you. Something flickered in his eyes. Hope, maybe. Nancy killed it immediately. It doesn't change anything. But it was the right thing. Jake nodded. Take care of him, Nancy. You're an incredible mother. Then he left. Actually left. Without pushing. Without asking for more. Nancy stood in that gallery surrounded by priceless art and felt the strangest mix of emotions. Not forgiveness. She wasn't anywhere near that. But maybe acknowledgement that people could change even if that change didn't entitle them to anything. She returned to the party, found her team, celebrated properly, took photos with the award, made connections that would turn into million-dollar contracts, drove home at midnight to her condo where Gunner was asleep in his room, Chompy the Triceratops clutched to his chest. Nancy stood in his doorway watching him sleep, this perfect human she'd created and raised and protected fiercely. Jake's grey eyes in his son's face, but everything else was hers. His kindness, his curiosity, his absolute certainty that he was loved. Her phone buzzed, a text from Maria. How'd it go? Nancy typed back, I won. Again. Then she added, Jake was there. We talked. It was weird, but okay. Maria, you forgive him? Nancy looked at Gunner, sleeping peacefully. No, but maybe someday I won't need to hate him anymore. That's different. She put her phone away, changed into pajamas, washed off the makeup. In the mirror, she saw herself, 32 years old, successful, strong, exactly the woman she'd needed to become. Jake had said she wasn't beautiful anymore. He'd been so fucking wrong. But it had taken losing him to realize she'd never needed his approval in the first place. Nancy climbed into bed, set her alarm for 6 a.m. Gunner was an early riser, and fell asleep with the award on her nightstand catching the moonlight. She'd won in every way that mattered, and she'd done it completely on her own terms. Chapter 7. When wolves learned to bleed rock bottom, Jake Cabay discovered, wasn't a place you hit once. It was a series of descents, each one teaching you exactly how much further you could fall. 14 months sober. Jake woke up every morning at 5:30 a.m. in his studio apartment in Hamtramck, made coffee in a Mr. Coffee machine that cost $12, and went to a 6 a.m. AA meeting before work. His sponsor Terry met him there most mornings. How you doing? Terry always asked. Still sober, Jake always answered. That's all that matters. The youth center had become Jake's anchor. Marcus had gotten into Cranbrook Academy of Art with a full scholarship. Jake had helped him with every piece of that portfolio. The kid had hugged him when the acceptance letter came, actually cried on Jake's shoulder. I couldn't have done this without you, man. Yes, you could have. You've got the talent. I just helped you see it. 2 other kids had followed, Jasmine, who wanted to be an industrial designer, and Deshawn, who was brilliant at urban planning concepts. Jake worked with them after hours, never charging, never asking for recognition, just doing the work because it mattered. His father had called once, 6 months into recovery. Your mother tells me you're still sober. 14 months. Long silence. Good. That's good, Jacob. Not pride, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. It was something. Jake had started a side project in his spare time, designing accessible, affordable vehicles for working families, Not luxury, not status symbols, just good, reliable cars that people making $40,000 a year could actually afford. He worked on sketches late at night, built clay models on his kitchen counter, ran cost analyses. It would never make him rich, that wasn't the point. The point was building something that helped people instead of something that impressed them. His old life felt like it had happened to someone else. The penthouse, the expensive suits, the models and influencers. He saw photos sometimes on social media, his former friends at galas and yacht parties, their lives continuing unchanged. He didn't miss it, not even a little. What he missed was Gunnar, a child he'd never met but thought about constantly. Jake had seen photos. Nancy posted them occasionally on Instagram. Gunnar at the zoo, at playgrounds, covered in paint at some art class, growing up without him. Jake's therapist, Dr. Okafor, asked about it in their weekly sessions. You could request custody, visitation rights. You have legal standing. No. Why not? Because forcing my way into his life is still about me, about what I want, what I need. Gunnar deserves better than a father who shows up because a court ordered it. So what will you do? Keep working on myself. Keep trying to become someone worthy of him. Hope that someday Nancy decides I've earned the chance. And if she never does? Jake sat with that question, really sat with it. Then I live with the consequences of my choices. I destroyed that chance. If it never comes back, that's on me. Dr. Okafor nodded. That's growth, Jake. Real accountability. One Thursday in June, Jake was at the youth center helping Jasmine with her portfolio when his phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Cabay, this is Scottsdale Regional Medical Center. Your father, Dominic Cabay, was brought in an hour ago. Heart attack. He's in surgery now. Jake's blood went cold. Will he? Too early to say, but you should get here. Jake was on a plane 4 hours later, landed in Phoenix at midnight, drove straight to the hospital. His stepmother Diane was in the waiting room, along with his two half-siblings Michael and Lauren. Diane hugged him. He asked for you. When they were loading him in the ambulance, he kept saying, "Get Jacob." The surgery took 9 hours. Bypass, triple bypass. The surgeon came out at 7 a.m. looking exhausted. He made it through, but he's critical. The next 48 hours will tell us a lot. Jake sat in that hospital for 3 days straight. Diane brought him coffee and sandwiches. Michael and Lauren were polite but distant. They'd never been close. And Jake's public meltdown hadn't helped. On the third day, Dominic woke up. Tubes everywhere, machines beeping, but conscious. Jake stood at his bedside. His father looked old, really old for the first time. 74 years reduced to this fragile thing in a hospital bed. Dad, hey, I'm here. Dominic's eyes focused on him. His hand moved slightly, reaching. Jake took it. Jacob. His voice was barely a whisper. You look different. I'm sober, Dad. 18 months. Good. Dominic's grip tightened slightly. The boy, my grandson. Have you met him? Jake's throat closed. No, Nancy hasn't. I haven't earned that yet. Fix it. Dominic's eyes were fierce despite his weakness. You fix it, Jacob. That boy, he's all that matters. Not money, not company, family. You fix it. I'm trying, Dad. I promise I'm trying. Dominic closed his eyes. Try harder. He survived. Stabilized over the next week, began the long recovery process. Jake stayed for 2 weeks, helping Diane navigate insurance and care plans, reconnecting, tentatively, with Michael and Lauren. Before he left, Dominic pulled him aside in the hospital room. I was too hard on you sometimes, pushed you to be something you weren't ready to be, made the company more important than your actual life. Dominic's voice was still weak but clear. That's on me. But what you did to that woman, to your son, that's on you. Own it, fix it, be better than I taught you to be. I will, Dad. I am. Good. Now get the hell out of here and go earn your place in that boy's life. Jake flew back to Detroit with a new clarity. His father had almost died. Life was short. Gunnar was 3 years old already. 3 years of memories, milestones, moments Jake could never get back. But maybe if he proved himself long enough, he could be there for what came next. Back in Detroit, Jake doubled down. The youth center, AA meetings, therapy, his affordable vehicle project. He lived quietly, worked hard, stayed sober. He didn't contact Nancy, didn't push, didn't ask for anything, just worked on becoming the man his son might someday want to know. One Saturday in October, Jake was at a community park that the youth center had helped fund. Anonymous donation, actually from the sale of his art collection, but nobody needed to know that. He was there with a group of kids from the center, helping fix a broken swing set. It felt good, useful, real. A little boy, maybe 3 or 4, came running over. "Mister, can you fix the spinny thing? The merry-go-round? Let me look at it." The kid grabbed his hand, pulled him across the playground. Jake laughed, let himself be led. They reached the merry-go-round. Jake examined it. The bearing was shot, but he could jury-rig it temporarily. He pulled out his toolkit, because of course he carried a toolkit now, started working. The kid watched, fascinated. "You're good at fixing stuff." "Thanks, buddy. What's your name?" "Gunner." Jake's hands went still. He looked up, really looked, at the child. Grey eyes. His grey eyes. Nancy's warm brown skin, her smile, her energy. But those eyes were unmistakably his. This was his son, standing 3 feet away, completely unaware that the stranger fixing playground equipment was his father. Jake's heart was pounding so hard he thought he might pass out. "That's a cool name." "It means warrior. My mama told me." "Your mama sounds smart." "She's the best. She builds businesses, and she makes really good pancakes, and she gives the best hugs." Gunner said it with such certainty, such pure love. Jake's eyes burned. He blinked hard, focused on the merry-go-round. "She sounds amazing." "She is." Then Gunner gasped. "Oh no, I was supposed to stay near Mama." He took off running. Jake stood slowly, watching him go. Across the playground, Nancy was sitting on a bench, laptop open. She looked up as Gunner approached, her whole face transforming into warmth. She hadn't seen Jake yet. Jake gathered his tools, told the other kids he'd be right back, and walked to his car on shaking legs. He'd just met his son. Gunner had held his hand, talked to him, smiled at him. Didn't know who he was, but had trusted him anyway. Jake sat in his car and cried, deep, wrenching sobs that came from somewhere he didn't know existed. Not from sadness, from the overwhelming weight of what he'd lost and what he was still fighting to earn back. That night, he went to his AA meeting and shared. "I met my son today. For real. We talked. He doesn't know who I am, but we talked, and he's perfect, and I'm so grateful, and it hurts so much I can barely breathe." The group listened. Terry squeezed his shoulder. A woman named Rita, who'd been sober 12 years, said, "That's the gift, man. You got to see what you're fighting for. Hold on to that." Jake did. Over the next months, he went to that playground sometimes, never seeking Gunner out, never pushing, just being there if their paths crossed. They did, occasionally. Gunner would wave, say hi to the fixing man. Jake would wave back, help other kids, keep his distance. Nancy never approached him. But she'd seen him. Jake was sure of it. The way she'd pause, watch him with Gunner for a moment before calling her son back. She was allowing this. Barely. But she was allowing it. It was more than he deserved. Christmas came. Jake spent it at the youth center, serving dinner to families who needed it. Marcus came by with his mom, introduced Jake as the teacher who changed my life. Jake went home to his studio apartment that night, looked at the sketches of affordable vehicles pinned to his wall, and felt something he'd been afraid to name. Hope. Not that Nancy would forgive him. He might never earn that, but hope that he could become someone worth knowing. Someone Gunner might someday be proud to call father. It wasn't much, but it was real. And real, Jake had learned, was all that mattered. Chapter 8. Earning what you can't buy. Jake Cabay learned that fatherhood wasn't a title you claimed. It was a position you auditioned for every single day in front of the toughest judge on earth. a child who could smell bullshit from a mile away. Saturday mornings became sacred. Jake showed up at 9:55 a.m. without fail. 3 alarms, early to bed Fridays, entire week planned around those hours. Nancy was always there first, bench with laptop, working while Gunnar played. She'd nod. Jake nodded back. Then he'd help other kids, fix equipment, exist in Gunnar's orbit without claiming unearned space. The first weeks built slowly. Week 1, swings, Gunnar talked trucks. Week 2, monkey bars, the fast way. Jake failed spectacularly, made Gunnar laugh. Week 3, another kid pushed Gunnar off a slide, and when Nancy got the first aid kit, Gunnar let Jake carry him to the bench. "You're okay, buddy. Your mom's gonna fix you right up." Nancy cleaned the scrape while Jake distracted Gunnar. The 3 of them around that bench felt almost real. Week 5, tag with the kids, 30 minutes running. Jake, 39 and supposedly fit, was winded. Gunnar thought this hilarious. Week 7, rain. Nancy texted, first initiated contact. "Gunnar's disappointed about rain. I told him you'd be there next week." Jake, "I'll be there every week. Rain or shine." Week 8, a kid broke his arm on the monkey bars. Gunnar was scared. But afterward he looked at Jake. "Did you ever break a bone, Jake?" "Yeah, buddy. Broke my collarbone in high school. Hurt a lot, but I healed. Cameron's going to be fine too. Can we send him a card?" Nancy's eyebrows rose. Jake looked at her, asking permission. "That's a very kind idea," Nancy said. Week 10 changed everything. Gunnar's 4th birthday party. Nancy hadn't invited Jake, but 3 days before. "Can Jake come to my birthday?" Nancy froze. "Why do you want Jake there?" "Because he's nice, and he said T-Rex is the best dinosaur like me." Nancy texted Jake. "Gunnar's birthday, Saturday 2 p.m, Summit Trampoline Park. He asked if you could come. You can, but you're still just Mum's friend. Don't push." Jake arrived with a Spider-Man art set. Thoughtful, not expensive. Gunnar's face lit up. Jake hung back, helped supervise, made himself useful. At cake time, Gunnar insisted Jake sit with them. The photo Nancy took, Gunnar between them, mid-laugh, frosting on his nose. First photo of all 3 together. Nancy printed it, didn't frame it, just put it in her important things box. Months passed. Gunnar started kindergarten. Jake asked about it the next Saturday without Nancy mentioning it. "How did you know he started school?" "He's 5 now, kindergarten age. He loved it. Came home with a painting of our family, me, him, and Chompy." Jake smiled, but something flickered. Pain that he wasn't in that picture. He said nothing. Week 23. First snow. Empty playground. Nancy and Jake stood watching Gunnar make snowballs. "I'm proud of you," Nancy said suddenly. Jake turned, shocked. "You've shown up. Every week for 6 months. I thought you'd quit, but you didn't." "I'm not going to." "I'm starting to believe that. I'm not saying we're okay, but you're doing the work. That matters." Jake's eyes were wet. "Thank you." December. Gunnar made a card at school for everyone I love. Nancy, Maria, Bethany, Chompy, and Jake Playground. Nancy texted impulsively, "Christmas lights at the zoo Friday 6 p.m, if you want to come." "I'd love to." Detroit Zoo's wild lights was magical. Gunnar ran ahead pointing. Nancy and Jake walked behind, careful not to stand too close. At penguins, Gunnar grabbed both their hands, pulled them forward. When Nancy got hot chocolate, she heard them talking. "Jake, do you have kids?" Nancy froze. "That's complicated, buddy." "Why?" "Because I have a son, but I wasn't there when I should have been, so I'm trying to earn the right to be in his life now." "That's sad." "Yeah, it's the saddest thing I've ever done." "Does your son know you're sorry?" "I hope so. His mom is helping me show him." "His mom sounds nice." "Yeah, it's the saddest thing I've ever done." "Does your son know you're sorry?" "I hope so. His mom is helping me show him." Jake's voice thick. "She's the best mom in the world." Nancy stepped forward with hot chocolate, met Jake's eyes. He'd been talking about them, dancing to the truth without crossing the line. That night, Nancy texted, "Thank you for tonight, and for what you said. You heard that? Yeah, you did it right." Pause. "When do you think he'll be ready to know?" Nancy sat with that. Gunnar was 5, smart, intuitive. "I don't know yet, but when he is, I'll tell you. Thank you for trusting me this far." Nancy looked at the trampoline park photo in her box, pulled it out, put it on her dresser. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the beginning of something. Chapter 9. The Man at the Playground. Nancy Walsh had built a life where she needed no one, but wanting someone, she discovered, was a different choice entirely. Spring came early to Detroit. By March, the playground was bustling every Saturday. Jake had been showing up for 11 months now, 47 consecutive Saturdays, never late, never cancelled, never pushed. Gunnar, at 5.5, had started asking more pointed questions. "Mama, why is Jake always at the playground?" "Because he likes being around you, baby." "Why?" "Because you're pretty great to be around." "Does he have other kids?" Nancy's breath caught. "Why do you ask?" "Because Cameron's dad coaches like 6 kids' soccer teams, but Cameron says he's his dad, but Jake only hangs out with me, so I thought maybe—" The conversation she'd been dreading. Nancy knelt down, eye level with her brilliant, perceptive son. "Baby, do you like having Jake around?" "Yeah, he's fun, and he fixes stuff, and he laughs at my jokes." "Good, because Jake cares about you a lot, and I think pretty soon we should talk about why." "Okay, Mama." Gunnar ran off to play. Nancy sat on the bench, heart pounding. She texted Jake, who was at the other side of the playground. "I think we need to talk about telling him." Jake's head whipped up. He looked at her across the playground. She nodded. After Gunnar tired himself out, Nancy suggested ice cream, their ritual now. The 3 of them walked to the shop, got their usual flavors, sat on their usual bench. "Gunnar, baby, Jake and I need to tell you something," Nancy started. Gunnar looked between them, suddenly nervous. "Am I in trouble?" "No, sweetie, not at all. The opposite." Nancy took a breath. "Do you remember how you asked me about your daddy sometimes?" "Yeah. You said he was learning to be a good dad." "That's right. Well, Jake is your daddy." Gunnar blinked, looked at Jake, looked at Nancy, back to Jake. "Really?" Jake's voice was rough. "Yeah, buddy, really." "So why didn't you tell me before?" Nancy answered. "Because grown-ups make mistakes sometimes. Your daddy made some big mistakes when you were a baby. He wasn't ready to be your dad then. So he's been spending all this time showing us that he's ready now." Gunnar processed this with 5-year-old logic. "So you were testing him, like a superhero test." Jake laughed wetly. "Yeah, exactly like that." "Did he pass?" Nancy looked at Jake, at this man who'd shown up week after week, asking for nothing, just being present, who'd funded playgrounds and scholarships and youth programs, who'd gotten sober, gone to therapy, completely rebuilt his life. "He's passing," she said carefully. "He's still got more to prove, but he's doing really good." Gunnar turned to Jake. "Are you going to be my dad now, like Cameron's dad?" "I'd like to be, if that's okay with you, but it won't change anything sudden. I'll still see you on Saturdays at the playground. Maybe I can come to more stuff. School events, birthday parties, if your mum says it's okay." "What about my name?" "Cameron has his dad's last name." Nancy hadn't thought about that. "Your name is Walsh, baby, like mine. That doesn't have to change." "But could it? Could I be Gunnar Walsh Cabay, like Mom's last name and Dad's last name?" Nancy's throat closed. She looked at Jake, who looked like he might collapse. "We can talk about that, baby. It's a big decision." "I like it. It sounds important. Like I have more family." After ice cream, walking home, Gunnar held both their hands again, but this time felt different. Lighter, somehow, like a secret had been released. Dad, can you come to my soccer game next week?" "Dad." The word hit Jake visibly. He had to stop walking for a second. I would love to come to your soccer game. Cool. I'm not very good, but I try really hard. That's all that matters, buddy. At Nancy's building, Gunnar hugged Jake goodbye. Really hugged him. Tight. Thanks for being my dad. Jake was crying openly now. Thank you for giving me the chance. Upstairs, after Gunnar was settled with a movie, Nancy stood on her balcony. Her phone rang. Jake. Hey. I can't. His voice was wrecked. Nancy, I can't believe you told him. I thought it would be years. I thought... He was ready. He's smarter than we give him credit for. Thank you. Thank you for trusting me enough to... Don't thank me yet, Jake. This is the beginning, not the end. You've got years of showing up ahead of you. I know. I'm ready. I'm so ready. Gunnar asked about his last name, about adding Kabay. Silence. Then, what do you think? I think it's his choice. When he's older, if he wants both names, we make it happen. Okay, yeah, whatever he wants. Jake, I need to say something. Okay. Nancy chose her words carefully. I don't forgive you. Not fully. What you did, that damage doesn't just disappear. But I see who you're becoming. I see you showing up for our son. That matters more than forgiveness. I understand. I don't need your forgiveness. I just need to be his dad. Good. Then keep doing what you're doing. They hung up. Nancy looked out at Detroit, this city that had held her while she broke and rebuilt. Gunnar's laughter floated from inside. He was watching his favorite movie, happy and secure. Her phone buzzed. Simone texting about a new client. Walsh Collective had just opened a third office, this one in New York. Revenue was projected at $11 million this year. Nancy had built an empire, on her own, during nap times and midnight hours, and the sheer force of refusing to fail. She didn't need Jake, would never need Jake. But Gunnar wanted him, and that was different. Chapter 10. What Love Actually Costs. 1 year later. Gunnar's 6th birthday party was at the condo, Nancy's place, now with 3 bedrooms because Walsh Collective had gone public and her net worth was, well, more than she'd ever imagined. The party was small. Gunnar's closest friends from school, Maria, who'd become like family, Bethany, who'd never stopped checking on them, a few of Nancy's friends and their kids, and Jake, who showed up early to help set up, who'd been at every soccer game, every school event, every Saturday without fail, who'd moved to a better apartment but still lived modestly, still worked at the youth center, still went to meetings, Jake who'd been sober for 3 years and proven, day after day, that he'd changed. They weren't together. Nancy had been clear about that from the start. We're co-parents, that's it. I don't trust you that way, and I probably never will. Jake had accepted it. I don't deserve more than you're willing to give. But something had shifted over the year. The way Jake looked at her sometimes, not with desire, but with deep respect. The way they worked together on Gunnar's schedule, his school stuff, his life. The way Jake always deferred to her judgment, backed her up, supported her decisions. Partnership maybe, not romance, but partnership forged through fire. At the party, Gunnar opened presents, saved Jake's for last, a custom model car kit they could build together. Gunnar's face lit up. We can work on it at your place, when I come visit. Because that was new too. Gunnar had started spending 1 night a week at Jake's apartment. Nothing fancy, but Jake had set up a small bedroom for him, complete with glow-in-the-dark stars positioned exactly like the ones in Gunnar's room at Nancy's. The first overnight, Nancy had been terrified, but Gunnar had come home happy, chattering about the pancakes Jake made and the movie they watched. Did you have fun, baby? So much fun, but I missed you. I missed you too. Can I have 2 homes? One with you and one with Dad? Yeah, baby. You can have 2 homes where you're loved. At the party, while kids ran wild on sugar, one of Nancy's friends, Charisse, pulled her aside. Girl, you know he's in love with you, right? Nancy blinked. What? Jake, the way he looks at you, the way he supports everything you do. He's in love with you. We're just co-parenting. Uh-huh. Keep telling yourself that. Nancy watched Jake across the room. He was helping a kid who'd spilled juice, completely unfazed, laughing. Gunnar ran over, threw his arms around Jake's waist. Jake scooped him up, spun him around, both of them laughing. Nancy felt something. Not love. She wasn't ready for that, might never be ready for that. But something softer than hate, something close to appreciation. After the party wound down, after the last guest left, Jake helped Nancy clean up while Gunnar crashed on the couch, exhausted. "Thank you for today," Jake said, collecting paper plates. "For letting me be part of this. You're his father. Of course you're part of it. I know, but you didn't have to—" "Jake," Nancy stopped him. "You've proven yourself, okay? You've proven yourself, okay? You've shown up for 2 years straight. You're allowed to stop being surprised that I include you." Jake smiled. "Okay, I'll work on that." They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. Gunnar was fully asleep now, curled up with Chompy. "I'll carry him to his room," Jake offered. "Thanks." Nancy watched Jake lift their son, so gentle, so careful, and carry him down the hall. She heard the sounds of Jake tucking him in, probably adjusting the covers, definitely looking at him with that expression of wonder he still got. Jake came back out. "He's out cold." "Good. He'll sleep well tonight." Awkward pause. Jake should leave. Usually left right after events. But he lingered. "Nancy, can I ask you something?" "Okay. Do you think, someday, you'll be able to fully trust me?" Nancy considered the question. Really considered it. "I trust you with Gunnar. Completely. With my heart? I don't know. The damage you did, it's still there. I understand. But Jake, the fact that you showed up, that you changed, that you became the father he deserves, that's worth more than romance. That's real love, not the kind in movies, the kind that cost something." Jake's eyes were wet. "Thank you, that's all I needed to hear." He moved toward the door. Nancy surprised herself. "Jake." He turned. "You did good today. You're doing good every day, I see it." His smile was genuine, warm. "That means everything coming from you." After he left, Nancy sat on her couch, looked around at the life she'd built. Photos of Gunnar everywhere. At the zoo, at school, at the playground. The first photo of the three of them was framed now, sitting on a shelf. Her phone buzzed. A text from her former boss, Michelle. "Just saw the announcement about Walsh Collective's international expansion. You're unstoppable." Nancy smiled. Yeah, she was. Another text, this one from Jake. "Thank you again for today. Sleep well." She typed back, "You too. See you Saturday." Then added, "You're a good dad, Jake." 3 dots. Then, "I'm trying to be the dad he deserves, the partner you deserve. Thank you for the chance." Partner. Not romantic partner, but co-parent, teammate, someone in the trenches with her. Nancy looked at Gunnar's sleeping form visible through his bedroom door, at the life they'd built together, at the future stretching ahead, complicated, imperfect, but full of possibility. She'd told Jake 3 years ago that he'd regret his words, that someday he'd realize what he'd lost. He had. He absolutely had. But instead of wallowing in that regret, he'd rebuilt himself into someone worthy of their son. That took courage, real courage. Nancy would probably never be in love with Jake again. That bridge had burned too thoroughly. But respect, partnership, co-parenting with someone who actually showed up, she could do that. She was doing that. And Gunnar, her brilliant, kind, perfect son, was thriving because of it. At the end of the day, that was all that mattered. Nancy Walsh had won in every way that counted. She'd built an empire, raised an extraordinary child, and forced the man who'd destroyed her to become someone better. Not through revenge, through excellence, through simply being so undeniably powerfully herself that the world had no choice but to notice. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. And now, finally, she knew it. Epilogue. 3 years later, Gunnar Walsh Cabay sat at the kitchen table in his mother's condo, working on a school project about family history. He was 9 now, tall for his age, smart as hell, with his father's grey eyes and his mother's warmth. "Mum, can you tell me again how you and Dad met?" Nancy, making dinner, smiled. "At a conference. I was just starting out in my career. He was already successful. He thought he was very impressive." "Was he?" "He was impressive at hiding who he really was." Gunnar had heard the story before, age-appropriate versions. How Dad had made mistakes when Gunnar was born, how he'd worked really hard to become better, how Mum had been strong enough to build their life alone and wise enough to give Dad a second chance. "Do you love Dad?" Nancy paused. "I love who he's become. I respect him deeply. We're partners in raising you. That's a different kind of love than in the movies, baby." "But you're not married." "No, and we probably won't be. We both like our lives how they are." "That's okay. Cameron's parents aren't married either, and they're happy." Nancy's phone buzzed. Jake texting, "Running 5 minutes late for pickup, hit traffic." She typed back, "No problem. He's working on homework anyway." Jake picked Gunnar up every Wednesday and every other weekend now. They had a good rhythm, flexible, communicative, focused on Gunnar's needs. Jake had started his own company 2 years ago, affordable vehicle design, exactly what he'd dreamed about. It was small but growing, profitable, doing real good in the world. He was dating someone, a teacher named Rachel, who Gunnar actually liked. Nancy had met her, found her kind and grounded, perfect for Jake. Nancy was seeing someone too, Marcus, the surgeon from years ago. Second time around, the chemistry had appeared. He was patient with her trust issues, loved Gunnar, didn't need her to be anything other than who she was. Life was complicated and beautiful, and nothing like what Nancy had imagined at 29, alone in that hospital room. It was better. The doorbell rang. Gunnar grabbed his overnight bag, packed and ready, and ran to answer it. "Dad." "Hey, buddy, ready for our trip to the Science Museum tomorrow?" "So ready." Jake came in, hugged Gunnar, then met Nancy's eyes. "Thanks for being flexible about the pickup time." "Of course. Have fun, you two." "Mom, don't forget my soccer game Saturday." "I'll be there, baby. Both of us will." Because that was their life now, both of them showing up, both of them present. Not perfect, not traditional, but real. As Jake and Gunnar headed out, chattering about dinosaur exhibits, Nancy finished making dinner for one, poured herself wine, sat on her balcony looking at Detroit's skyline. Walsh Collective had been acquired by a major firm for an amount that made her blush. She'd started a foundation for single mothers in business, written a book about building companies while raising kids, become a voice for women who refused to be broken by the men who tried to break them. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. "Dinner tomorrow? Want to try that new Ethiopian place?" Nancy. "Perfect. Pick me up at 7. Marcus. "Can't wait to see you." She smiled. After years of protecting her heart, she was learning to want again. Not need, want. The difference mattered. Another text, this one from Jake. "Gunnar says thank you for packing Chompy. Also, you look really good lately. Happy looks good on you." Nancy paused, then typed, "Thanks, you too. Have fun at the museum." She meant it. She was happy. Jake was happy. Gunnar was thriving. The man who told her she wasn't beautiful anymore had learned, through pain and work and years of showing up, that beauty was never about appearance. It was about strength, resilience, the courage to build something from nothing, and the wisdom to know your worth. Nancy Walsh knew her worth now, and it was priceless.